Hey guys, this is Comic Uno, and today I'm doing Comic Uno's Best Comics of the Week. This week I had a total of 13 comics, I think, so pretty average haul for me. Yeah, 13 books. So with this show, I go least favorite to best pick of the week, so let's get started. Number 13 for me this week was Separation Anxiety, Absolute Carnage, issue 1. Actually, this is a book I wasn't really planning on getting. I don't know anything about these Venom creatures. I've never really learned much about these characters in particular, so I'm like, oh, do I really need it? But I saw some reviews saying this was a family-driven narrative, so I'm like, all right, let me give it a try. I enjoyed issue 1 of Absolute Carnage. I am getting some of the tie-ins, so wasn't a huge fan of this one. Wasn't a horrible issue, but it is a family-driven story about, you know, parents getting separated pretty much and how the kids are reacting to that. But it's also this kind of monster horror movie style story where the Venoms come into their home and take over. And that's pretty much the story. It really doesn't do much for the overall Absolute Carnage story, which was disappointing. And again, I guess maybe because I don't have a big background on these characters, I don't really feel attached to anybody here, especially because it is more family-driven drama. I don't think there was enough time or enough room for this story to grow. And maybe it could have done a little bit better if it was just more than a one-shot, so we could learn a bit more about these characters and feel attached to this horror story. But the artwork was pretty good. I did enjoy that. I think it definitely met the horror feel of what you want from this event and from, a Venom story like this. So overall, I'm going to give this 2 stars. It's a one-shot, so I won't say I can't get the next issue because there is no next issue. But I don't think you really need to get that one. And speaking of Absolute Carnage, my number 12 is actually Absolute Carnage Scream, issue 1. Now, another character I really don't know much about because she is a very obscure Venom character. The only time I've ever seen her was the Spider-Man ride in Universal. And I remember saying, all right, I know every Spider character here except her. What's going on? I'm a hardcore Spider-Man fan, and I don't even know who this person is. So she is a very obscure Venom character. So I wanted to learn more about her, and you kind of don't. This is a very female-driven storyline, actually, or female-driven Venom story, where we get to see Patricia, who is Scream, and the other Venom character that Bunn has created, which is Andy. So if you read Venom way back when Bunn was writing the character with Flash Thompson, that's where the character was created, and ever since then, Bunn has really been trying to push her into his storylines and try to utilize her. But I just haven't been able to connect with her. And so far, I haven't really seen the point of her in this event and all these tie-ins. I just feel like she's just kind of pushed in there. I just couldn't connect to this story as much. I wanted to learn more about Scream. I got some exposition out of it, but didn't really feel much of a connection. But why it is a little higher is that I thought the artwork was a bit neater. I did enjoy the art, and I've seen previous images of what Patricia looked like, and I think her look was improved here. So I enjoyed that aspect, and I guess she's a badass. So other than that, though, I probably won't get issue 2. So giving that 2 stars, and that is number 12. Moving on to number 11, and let me get a sip of water first. And I will say I'm a bit disappointed to see this one this low, because I actually liked the previous issue of technically this series. And that is Powers of X, issue 2. So, if you guys watched last week's Comic Uno Best Comics of the Week, you know that House of X actually made my top 5. I thought it was a really solid issue, and I liked that it was a bit more character-driven. Here with Powers of X, it kind of goes back to this exposition style and very overcrowded narrative. And for me, I just couldn't really get into it. I'm not as invested in the overall plot. I'm more invested in how this affects our characters. And because there's so much exposition, you don't really get those character beats as much as I like. But because you took the time in House of X issue 2 to flesh out Mora, the scenes I did like in this issue were Mora, Professor X, and Magneto. That's what I felt most attached to, and then everything else is just like, here's exposition. So I want more from these characters. I want to learn more about them so I can feel connected to the overall plot. But overall, the artwork is good. Obviously going to see this whole story through. through, and I hope that there's a story kind of like House of X issue 2 to get me back into it all. But wasn't extremely impressed with this one. So giving that 2.5 stars, and that is number 11. Moving on to number 10, which is sadly Ironheart issue 9. I definitely like this series more than the original. I stuck with that series for a really long time, and I just didn't feel like there was much movement. I definitely like the direction more. I like Riri's voice more here, which is why I'm picking it up. But I feel like this book is at a standstill, for sure. There's just all these special guest crossover issues, and I want more of a story for Riri in general, like they did in the beginning of this series, or at least interact with people that she's like really good friends with. I think some of the stronger storylines were, her and Nadia, because they are teammates. Seeing more from her other friends, like her non-superhero friends. Those are the stories I like more, but on the flip side, it was really cool to see Riri in awe of Wakanda, and if you're a big Black Panther fan, I think you're going to enjoy this. I like the dynamic between Shuri and Riri, but because I really don't read Black Panther, I wasn't as connected to this story, and again, I think I'm getting a bit fatigued of the crossovers and the team-ups. I want a little bit more from this story, or from this series, so hopefully it finds a bit of a direction, but I still am going to stick with this one. I do like the artwork a lot. Like I said, I do enjoy Riri as a character, so we'll see where this one goes. So Ironheart issue 9 gets 2.5 stars, and that is number 10. Moving on to number 9, which is Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man issue 10. And funny enough, from last issue, I actually was thinking of dropping this book, but then I was looking at the solicits for upcoming issues. I'm like, oh, I'm actually really invested to see where this goes. Like, Spider-Man might die, and then MJ's putting on the suit. I'm like, alright, that's pretty cool. It's just kind of a filler arc. And that teaches you maybe not to always drop so quickly. But, I really don't like this arc too much, but I think this is a better issue from this arc, because we get some good character moments, some classic Tom Taylor character moments. I really liked Iron Man and Spidey's interaction, them talking about money, and the whole beginning story. And then, getting to see Hobby try to find a better life for himself with the help of Spider-Man, Iron Man, and then defeating the villain by lawyers. So that was fun. I don't like the villain at all, and, that was definitely a very slow part of the issue. Like, the whole middle was really slow, but I liked some of the smaller moments in this issue, and I also don't really like the artwork. I think the coloring is extremely off. And honestly, a big proof of that is the flashback scene where, obviously, we've seen this before, but Spider-Man's, looking through his guilt, and Gwen looks like she has, like, red strawberry blonde hair, and I'm like, it's Gwen. She's got blonde hair. So I don't love the coloring here. And then the artwork is a bit blocky for me, so I haven't really been a fan of the artwork for this arc. I think it's a different artist than we usually get. Yeah, there's actually multiple artists here. We got Ken Lashley, Scott Hanna, and then Luca Maresca. So there are 3 artists here, so that's a lot. I think the same colorist, though. Yeah, same color art, that kind of brings it all together. But you can definitely feel that there's a lot of artists here with the style going on. It just felt really rushed to me. So overall, I'm going to give this 3 stars. Again, I think there was definitely some fun moments in this issue, but not my favorite arc overall. But I'm interested to see where they'll take Prowler after this. So that is number 9. And moving on to number 8. And number 8 for me is the only DC book I got this week, and that was Leviathan, issue 3. And that's kind of been a trend. I haven't been picking up a lot of DC books because just not a lot out there. We actually did a topic on it for Frontline, Comic Frontline, if you want to go check that out. I will link it at the end of this video, and also in the description below if you'd like, or the comments, that way you go check that out. But yeah, the only DC book I got was Leviathan this week, and then I think next week I'm getting Batman and Teen Titans, and that's it. So Leviathan has been slow. I've been seeing it out because obviously I've been reading Action Comics since the beginning of Bendis' runs. I want to see where this is going, but it's a slow burn, and we don't really know much about Leviathan's plan, and I think that's what really hinders this event, is that I don't feel like we're getting any closer to it either. I don't know if I'm even invested in Leviathan's plan. We just know he's this mysterious figure that are making superheroes go against each other. I want more than that. I don't want him to be this generic figure, and he needs to be a better villain for this event to strive. And also the interactions with everybody is kind of off, because people don't know each other here. Lois and Plastic Man is very Bendis-y, the dialogue, and I know that's weird to say, because obviously it is a Bendis book, so of course it's going to be Bendis-y, but I think it kind of goes nowhere in this issue. There's just a lot of standing around, having a very quick, sharp tongue, and that's definitely fun in certain books, but I think because we haven't really gotten much from these characters, or gotten much of character development and development at all, I wanted less of the witty, back and forth, and more of like, okay, what are the relationships with these people, and who the hell is Leviathan, or at least why should we be so scared of him? And also, like, one funny thing I feel like was interesting here is when all the heroes go up against Jason Todd, because that's pretty much the whole entire issue. Lois Lane's power is taking pictures. Like, every page we see of her, it's like, all right, I got a picture. And then she has, when everyone's attacking Jason, she's like, snap, 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 snap. And then honestly, that does become a bigger part of the story, where we get to see Lois interview Jason and learn a bit about Leviathan. But honestly, I thought it was too easy. Why is Jason spilling his guts to Lois? She just asked a question, and there was no gun to the head. He just like, hey, this is how I feel about the Bat family. So I feel like there could have been a little bit more back and forth between them. And definitely felt easy. But yeah, and then we have Amanda Waller cliffhanger, and that's it. We'll see where that goes, but I'm just not feeling that invested here. So overall, I'm going to give Leviathan, I guess, honestly, I'm going to probably give it 2.5 stars. I keep going back and forth. Am I going to give it 2.5 or 3? Because the artwork is really good for this book, but yeah, just not really feeling the story. So I think I'm going to lean more towards the 2.5 for that one. Sorry, my throat is very dry. But yeah, let's move on to number 7. Number 7 for me is Gwenpool Strikes Back, issue 1. I'm actually really surprised this is this high, because I didn't really love this book that much, but I didn't like, I guess, a good amount of books this week. But yeah, Gwenpool, the reason why it's a bit higher is that I felt like the actual narration, especially the artwork, was really inventive, really unique, where we get to see Gwen flipping through the pages, falling into panels that never have existed. I'm like, that's a cool concept, and that's why it's higher. Also, the artwork is just really fun. I really enjoy it. We get to see Gwen flossing and being Jeff the shark. So that was cool, but the story, on the other hand, I didn't quite like. I liked Gwenpool and West Coast Avengers, never could get into her other breaking the fourth wall stuff, and I thought this might be more of a continuation of West Coast Avengers, or at least get some development from her. She's with Quentin, and get more Jeff the Shark, because I really liked her humor there. I think it had a good balance of humor, because she was interacting with other people. It wasn't just her. And that's the biggest problem of this book, is it's just her. And the jokes do not land. There are so many pregnancy jokes in here about popping pimples, and I'm just like, what's going on? That wasn't quite funny. There's maybe 1 or 2 jokes that sneak in there and be like, oh, that was kind of charming. Like where Gwen's talking about, well, I'm just like you. I read DC Comics, and she references Dinah Lance. So that was fun. I enjoyed that. And I enjoyed seeing a little bit of Jeff, even if it wasn't really Jeff. I enjoyed that. But I like the potential where this could go. I think it can be cool that Gwen is, again, exploring stories that never happened in Marvel. And that tempts me to get issue 2. But the tone is just hyper. It is a hyper book, and I couldn't really get into it. So we'll see if I get the next issue or not. I think if it's a light week, I'll try that next issue, but this one didn't quite impress me that much. So Gwenpool Strikes Back issue 1 gets 3 stars. If you liked Gwenpool before, I think you'll enjoy it. If you enjoyed West Coast Avengers and you're picking it up because of West Coast Avengers, you're not going to like this issue. It's very far from her appearance there. So yeah, see if you like it. Again, at least I enjoyed the unique take on utilizing the comic medium. So I'm going to give that 3 stars, and that is number 7. Moving on to number 6, which is The Amazing Spider-Man issue 27. I did get the variant cover, which looked pretty cool. And this issue, it is very much a filler with Boomerang, but there's a lot of fun elements here, which is why it's higher than others. Why it's lower, though, is that the artwork is not as strong as it usually is. It's very bulky, just not really my style. It's not as crisp as what we're used to for Spider-Man. As you can see here, that kind of looks like the Ultimate Spider-Man version of him. But yeah, I didn't really like the art style that much, and the facial expressions. Like I said, it was a bit blocky, the artwork. But I did like the story. I liked seeing that Boomerang is going up against this, Sinister Six, because he's done bad to them. He was never a nice guy, even though he's trying to be a nice guy. Now he's like semi a hero. He's teaming up with Spider-Man. So I like that. And there's some cool cliffhangers with Beetle dating Randy. So we know Nick Spencer really likes Beetle as a character. So we're going to probably see more of her. But I don't really like the female Sinister Six. They don't really have much of a personality, but I like what they brought to the table with Boomerang. I really liked Aunt May here, where she, especially the ending, where she's like, I'm fine, don't worry, you go, Spider-Man. And then she curses when she sees that all her work for, what she's done for the homeless shelter in her name is just burned to the ground. Just like, shit. So I love Aunt May saying that. Was a really fun panel. So there's definitely some good jokes here and some fun character interactions that makes this issue worth it. So overall, I'm going to give this 3.5 stars, and that is number 6. Moving on to number 5, which is Captain Marvel issue 9. I love this cover. I know it's a Mark Brooks cover. I love his work. And then even next month's cover, that looks pretty awesome too. But yeah, this issue is pretty good. I enjoy where they're going with it. That Captain Marvel has this thing in her, this machine that's making her powers dampen, and exploring a bit more of that. I really liked her interactions with her supporting cast. Rhodey, we get a little bit of their romance. We get her, relationship with Jessica as best friends, and Tony. So those are definitely the aspect I enjoyed the most. I love seeing the Captain Marvel Batcave here. That was fun, and it looks awesome. We got her costume in there. It's in Maine. I thought that was really cool and connected to her miniseries really well. Life of Captain Marvel, which is one of my favorite Captain Marvel stories. So that was pretty cool. Artwork is really good for this book. I love the expression. The coloring's really good as well. But the middle of this issue, it was a little slow for me, as she's discovering more about not having her powers at the level that she's used to. So I kind of wish that was a little quicker, but I enjoy the other stuff surrounding it, and it's a pretty solid plot so far. So I've enjoyed it. I think it's definitely stronger than that first arc. So overall, I'm going to give that 3.5 stars, and that is number 5. We are moving on to number 4. Number 4 for me is Go-Go Power Rangers, issue 22. I do feel like this is a little bit of a slower issue, and also one thing that threw me off was actually the flashback at the beginning of the issue, because this is the second issue where they're in a different time than what we've been seeing from Go-Go. And especially if you're not reading both Mighty Morphin and Go-Go, which I'm sure most people are, but you never know. It gets a little confusing with the timelines, but so it's where Tommy is first introduced to the team, and they're trying to decide should he be part of the team or not. And then we jump into where we're actually at, which is Tommy not having his abilities anymore, and what that means for the team, and kind of the aftermath of it. So because I'm reading Mighty Morphin, which is also in another timeline, and obviously if you read a lot of comics and you're reading this monthly, you're kind of thrown off a little bit of like, oh wait, which timeline are we in again? So that took me a little bit out of it, but there's some really great character moments here and some good build up, especially with this new Ranger who hurts Jason in the end here. So where is that going to go? Very excited to see where that goes. And honestly, it connects a lot more to Shattered Grid as Jason is encountered about what has happened with Lord Draken. So very interested in that. And the moment I definitely enjoyed the most was Matt and Kimberly. what does Matt have up his sleeve, or is he just being a good friend, where Kimberly has issues with Tommy. I don't know if they've really broken up yet, but it's complicated at this point. And Matt does know that she's a ranger, and he says, hey, if you want to open up to me, I'm here, we could talk. Like, you're allowed to talk about that, that other stuff you can't talk to other people about, and someone who can relate in a way that's not a ranger. So that's, maybe a better outlet for her. So I really love that. Just seeing her gym stuff was really cool. And then you have a kind of classic Power Rangers episode where we get to see a bunny become the villain of this story, as Trini and Zach are trying to find different outlets to get their mind off of being rangers. So I do like the laid back aspect of Go-Go. It's very much more about the character development, and that's the strength of this issue. But like I said, the overall plot's a little slower, and then that timeline confusion I think could have weaved in a bit better in this issue. And there is a different artist here that I don't think is as strong as the previous artist we've gotten, but still, still strong, a bit more cartoony though. But yeah, overall I still really enjoyed this issue. I love this book, and I can't wait to see where Necessary Evils goes with Mighty Morphin and Go-Go. So overall, I'm going to give this 3.5 stars, and that is number 4. Moving on to number 3, which is another Boom book, and that is Ghosted in LA, issue 2. A really fun book. I like that we're learning more about our new character, or our main character, and she sees that her ex-boyfriend is having fun with this girl, and her ex-boyfriend's being nice. She's like, hey, he's like, hey, why don't you sit with us? Like, why are you ignoring me? And she goes on a date with this jerk, and that's pretty much the issue, as the ghosts haunt him by the end. And then the ex-boyfriend comes and says, hey, are you okay? You texted, and I was worried. And with the solicits, we do know where this is actually going. I'm really excited to see how our main character reacts to that. I won't spoil it here if you guys don't follow the solicits, but I'm really interested in the next issue and where they take it, and that this guy is, not the trope of like, oh, my ex-boyfriend. We actually do see him as a human being. So I'm excited for that. So Ghosted in LA issue 2 gets 3.5 stars, and that is number 3. All right, moving on to number 2, which is Second Coming issue 2. And this book I loved. I loved the first issue. And overall, this is a really solid follow-up where we get to see a little bit more about the differences between God and Jesus. So Jesus, he's finally interacting with the superhero, and our Sunstar, I believe his name is, he sees that his wife is in trouble at her job and wants to help and be like, I'm a macho man, I'm gonna help her out, and makes things worse. And the reason why he makes things worse is because he listened to God. So we really get to see the different ideologies of Old Testament God and New Testament God, which is Jesus, and see that both characters are helping each other, Sunstar and Jesus. And it was a really fun issue. Like I said, I really enjoyed this book overall. I like the artwork a lot too. I enjoy where we get to see, past of Jesus Christ and heaven, and how that's a bit more of a darker tone. And then you have like the superhero lightness to it with the rest of the book. So really solid issue. It's a really fun book for me. So Second Coming issue 2 gets 4 stars, and that is number 2. Moving on to number 1, which is Fantastic Four, issue 13. This by far was my favorite issue of the week. Really enjoyed this one. I like the artwork a lot. It's more of an action-packed issue, so you get some really crisp coloring and some good action as well, as the time is ticking, as the Thing will become Ben again, and he needs to fight the Hulk and really Puppet Master. But if you think this is just an action issue, it's not. There's a lot of great character moments as well, as Alicia is stuck and kind of becomes a hero of her own story, and then the Thing and Puppet Master having their own dynamic because of Alicia. Obviously, Puppet Master is the father of Alicia, so there's some drama there. So I really enjoyed this, and I liked what it meant for Alicia and Ben as a couple. It was a good honeymoon issue, and it's just a good character issue. This easily could have been a filler arc, and it wasn't because of the way they have Alicia and the Thing interact. So I had a really fun time with this one, and in the end we even get to see classic Ben utilizing his cast as like a reward in a way. And then if you're following Hulk or Immortal Hulk, it seems like he has some plans for Puppet Master, where we might not be seeing him for a while with his puppets, because his hands are not workable by the end of the issue. So yeah, overall I had a really fun time with this one. I've been really enjoying Fantastic Four, and definitely one of my favorite things from Dan Slott in a really long time. So if you're not reading Fantastic Four, totally recommend this. It is one of the best Fantastic Four series in a while. So it's a lot of fun. So, giving that one 4.5 stars, that is my number one pick. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. This is Comic Uno. Definitely go check out my comics like Father Like Daughter and They Call Her the Dancer, my Twitter and my Facebook page, and also every Tuesday at 10 p.m. Eastern Time is Frontline Live, where we discuss our favorite comics and comic book news. So hopefully you guys enjoyed. Bye guys.